Today I am talking about Warmoth's baritone conversion necks, so stick around. Hey everybody, it is Aaron at Warmoth, and today on my bench I have three necks. This one here is a Warmoth Telecaster replacement neck in the normal 25.5-inch scale length. This one is a Warmoth Gibson scale conversion neck in the shorter 24 3/4-inch scale length. And this is a Warmoth baritone scale conversion neck in the longer 28 5/8-inch scale length. And these two conversion necks I've done lots of videos on in the past and blog articles and stuff, and they always get lumped together because they're both conversion necks, but that's really kind of unfair to the baritone scale conversion neck, because these two, the standard neck and the Gibson scale conversion neck, are kind of interchangeable. You end up with the same instrument, just a slightly different feel, maybe a slightly different tone. But when you use a baritone conversion neck to replace the existing neck on a Fender body, or just make your own guitar with it, you end up with a completely different instrument that occupies a different range. It has a different role in the band. It's a whole different thing. And so I'm going to spend today talking about that, and then a couple more videos kind of covering the baritone conversion neck all by itself. I'm going to give it its own moment in the spotlight, because it really is a whole different instrument. When you attach it to a normal 25.5-inch scale guitar, you could put this on your Fender Strat body, you could put it on your Fender Telecaster body to replace the existing neck, and you end up with a completely different instrument that you can't get otherwise. Like with a standard scale neck, you could tune it down or just tune down the low strings, but even if you jack up the string gauge, when you tune it down, there's just this certain flubbiness in the strings that you can't dial out because the scale length is just too short. But when you put this longer scale length on, you enlarge the gauge of the strings, and you just get this nice, deep, crisp twang that you can't get any other way. And that's why this shows up in so many places, especially country music, because of that deep twang. It shows up in a lot of country music of all eras, the old school stuff and the modern stuff. Like Dwight Yoakam songs have baritone guitars all over through them. Brad Paisley uses them. I could swear I hear one in Ring of Fire by Johnny Cash. I could swear I hear one, and in country music they're often called tic-tac guitars instead of baritone guitars, and I think it's because they're doing that they're doing that root 5 thing a lot of times, and so they're called tic-tac guitars. And you'll hear it on a lot of early rock music and rockabilly music, when at a time when rock and roll wasn't that far removed from country music. Like Duane Eddy or Working for the Man by Roy Orbison features a baritone guitar prominently. I know that Brian Setzer on the last tour or the tour before was using a baritone guitar for Mystery Train and another song, I think. So it shows up a lot there, but it also gets used in contemporary music. Anytime somebody wants that low sound, like Dave Matthews uses one on several songs, The Space Between, I think, or Run Around by Van Halen. The intro to that is a baritone guitar, I think. The intro to Rock Lobster by the B-52s. The theme song to Twin Peaks is another one. So you hear it quite a bit. Wichita Lineman is one that gets mistaken for a baritone guitar quite often. Let's talk about Wichita Lineman. One of my favorite songs of all time. It's just so haunting, and I love that song. But that is not a baritone guitar. That is a Bass6. And they're a lot of times very hard to tell apart from each other because they occupy kind of the same note range, and they have a similar tonality. And when you're trying to tell whether a song uses a Bass6 or a baritone guitar, it can often be very difficult to tell. In fact, I could be wrong about some of the ones that I just threw out. I'm pretty sure I'm right though, but I could be wrong. A lot of times what you just have to do is do some research. You got to hop on YouTube and see if you can find an old video of the performer performing it live and see what instrument they're using, which is the case with Glenn Campbell in Wichita Lineman. There's videos of him playing it on a Bass 6. But if you can't find anything like that, then you just basically have to figure out the song and see what range the notes are in, and then you can kind of make an assumption. But sometimes you could just substitute one for the other depending on what key you're playing in. But it can be very hard to tell them apart. And I like to think of it like this. A baritone guitar is a guitar that is tuned down to a range in between a standard guitar and a bass guitar. It's right in between there. And the scale length is right in between there. You know, if a normal scale length is 25.5 or 24 3/4, then a baritone guitar, ours is 28 5/8, and a full-length bass guitar is 34. So it's right in between there. And note-wise, on a baritone guitar, the low string gets tuned down to like an A or sometimes a B. So it gets tuned right in between a guitar and a bass guitar. Now Bass 6, on the other hand, I like to think of as basically a short scale 6-string bass. Usually they're like 30-inch scale or a 32-inch scale, right in between there. So longer than a baritone, but not as long as a full-length bass guitar. And the low E, or the low string on a Bass 6, gets tuned down to an E below, an octave below a guitar. So it gets tuned down to the same E as a bass guitar, but it is different than a bass, because a bass is just tuned in straight fourths. A Bass 6, even though the E is tuned the same, the rest of the guitar is tuned just like a guitar, so guitar chords and everything still work on it. And so between the two, the baritone neck or the baritone guitar is way more popular, because a baritone guitar appeals to guitar players. Bass players, if they want a bigger range, they're just going to buy a 6-string bass. So a Bass 6 doesn't really appeal directly to anybody. It's just kind of a very, very niche instrument that's had some very famous songs recorded with it. It's not something that bass players typically reach for, and it's not something guitar players typically reach for. So that's, in my mind, that's kind of the difference between a Bass 6 and a baritone guitar. Given the choice, I would always opt for a baritone guitar, just because it sits in that in-between range. And that's really kind of it. That's just some things I wanted to talk about this week. But I am going to spend the next couple of videos just spotlighting our baritone conversion neck all by its own self. I'm going to show you how it attaches to a normal guitar. And who knows, maybe I'll even write an original song on it just for fun. So keep an eye out for that. And until then, if you have any more questions about Warmoth's baritone scale conversion necks, we have a ton of info on our website. Like I said, I've done other videos on these in the past, and I'll link to those in the description. Or you can always give our customer service reps a call. They're always happy to help. And until next time, keep on picking.